Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. Boy, I've been reading a fascinating book, The Closing of the Western Mind by Charles Freeman. Um, that's a challenging book right there. It really is, with incredible implications to it. Well, we are continuing our study of Jesus' prediction in Matthew chapter 24 that before his parousia, and as signs of the end, the disciples ask us, tell us what should be the sign of your coming, the end of the age. Jesus said that many false prophets would arise, and because lawlessness would abound, the love of the majority would grow cold. Matthew 24 and verse 10. In Matthew chapter 24 and verse 24, Jesus said, false Christ, false prophets will arise, show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Here Jesus warned about false prophets, false messiahs, saying, oh, look, he's in the desert. No, he's in the temple. In other words, they were going to say he had already come. Well, let's see. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul said, do not let anyone deceive you into believing that the day of the Lord has already come. So, beware of false prophets who say he's in the desert, he's in the temple. The Lord has come. And Paul said, don't let anyone deceive you, which obviously means there were their people there teaching it, that the Lord had already come. 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 18, Paul said, Hymenaeus and Philetus were teaching, the resurrection is already past. That's the fulfillment of Matthew 24:26. Of those who would say, he's in the desert, he's in the temple, he has already come. He has come. And Paul dealt with that twice before AD 70. All right. So I'm sharing with you how I have shared with you how even in the book of Acts we have the arrival, the presence, the record of false teachers, false prophets, false miracle workers. We have the story of Simon the Sorcerer. We have the story of Elymas, a great miracle worker. We have the story of the sons of Sceva, all of whom were considered to be the great power of God and had tremendous followers. Now, when we come to the epistles, that evidence just continues to mount and to mount and to mount. And really, honestly, if we are objective and if we're willing to examine the evidence is overwhelming that there was a tremendous apostasy in the first century. There were all sorts of false prophets. There were all sorts of false apostles in fulfillment of Jesus' words. I call your attention, first of all, to the book of Galatians. Now, the book of Galatians, it is generally believed, widely believed, was the very first of Paul's epistles. It is believed that it was written probably around 49, perhaps 50. And then you have the epistles of the Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, that were written probably around 50, maybe as late as 52 for 2nd Thessalonians. Point being that the book of Galatians and, of course, Thessalonians, we'll get to Thessalonians. Galatians was written at a very early period of time. I mean, after all, we have the establishment of the church on the day of Pentecost, AD 33, if you accept that dating of it. And so by 49 AD, 16 years, Paul wrote to the churches of Galatia. Now, here's what we need to know. Galatia was an entire geographical region. It was not a city. It was an entire geographical region of numbers of cities. And so Paul, in this circulatory letter that had to be read in all of the churches of Galatia, wrote, I marvel that you, that's the churches in Galatia, are so soon removed from him who has called you into grace unto another gospel, which is not another gospel, but there are some who would pervert the gospel of Christ. They would pervert the gospel of Christ. They're false teachers. They're false prophets. And they have subverted, they have perverted, and caused exactly how many we do not know, because Paul doesn't tell us, but the issue and the problem was of such massive proportion that Paul felt it necessary to write this circulatory letter to all of the churches in this massive region, and to say, I'm absolutely stunned that you have departed from the faith so soon. Folks, is this not a fulfillment of Matthew 24? If it's not, what greater evidence would we need? What greater testimony would we need? And in all of the churches, and in an entire region encompassing hundreds of miles, and they have departed from the gospel. They have apostatized. Honestly, I don't know how much greater testimony we would need than this. This is simply undeniable. And so when commentators go to Jesus' words about the great apostasy, and they point to the councils of churches, and they point to what's going on in modern churches, and they completely ignore the New Testament evidence. That is an improper hermeneutic. And let's not forget, Jesus said all of those things would happen in his generation. Matthew 24, verse 34. He was not saying this is going to happen to a certain kind of people. That's an abuse of the Greek. And so I would suggest to you, if we're going to be serious students of the Bible, and if we are going to actually accept the testimony of the Bible, we're going to have to accept the fact that there was, in fact, a great apostasy in the first century. Now, next Monday, we will continue our examination of the epistolary evidence, and we will conflate that with something else that Jesus said in the book of Luke that is absolutely stunning. So in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Now don't forget, and beginning in December, I'm just up to my eyeballs in writing and research and helping a couple of guys publish their books, trying to get a couple of my own books close to publication. I'm just up to here in this. So, beginning in December, I will be responding to, reviewing, and refuting the book Hope Resurrected by Mr. Lance Conley. You'll be looking forward to that, because I can guarantee you, you're going to be disappointed in Mr. Conley's book. It's being touted as the answer to the full preterist paradigm. But I've got to tell you, folks, and I've got to close here. I told my wife the other day, when books like this come out, it is so encouraging. Number one, it shows that futurists feel threatened by the reality of the incredible growth of the preterist movement. They know it's growing, so they know they have to answer. Secondly, when I read books like Mr. Sam Frost's book that we just recently reviewed and refuted, and when I read books like Mr. Conley's book, which I'm in the process of reading, and I see that, okay, these are guys who are claiming to be the answer to the full preterist paradigm, and I see how incredibly illogical, I see how abusive of proper exegesis and hermeneutic they are. When I see the utter desperation of their arguments, I know without a doubt that covenant eschatology is true. So, hey folks, keep those books coming, because it helps confirm the truth of the full preterist paradigm. Okay, out of time for today. Listen, you have a fantastic weekend, okay? Please be safe. I'll see you on Monday.